It is my honor to be able to introduce my friend, my colleague, my family member, Miguel Fernandez Felix, to you. And I do want to say a few words before I actually introduce you specifically, a little bit about what you're doing and how important that I think it is, and how kind of revolutionary within the context of the museum. I was at one of the early museum management institutes 35 years ago, and I remember when the talk of marketing and communications came up, it was like, ugh. It was a kind of a dirty word. You couldn't talk about marketing in any kind of a open and accepting way as one of the departments and disciplines of the museum. 35 years have passed, and here you are from 18 different countries. It is an absolutely accepted and understood indispensable part of any museum, although Corina tells me that that isn't necessarily the case in France, and we can talk about that more. But certainly in the United States, you cannot run a museum without having somebody or some understanding of what the decoding of the often esoteric messages that come out of a museum really are. We used to say the medium is the message. The medium is sometimes not the message. It's often rarefied and not available to the general audience. So you're a part of what is a relatively new element of the museum world. Moving to my dear Miguel, I've known Miguel for over 20 years, maybe 25 years. I have seen him be dedicated to the idea of communication from the time I've known him. He was always wondering about it, but it's going to be a little counterintuitive when you listen to him today, because not only does he believe in communicating the museum outside, which of course one has to do, but he also believes deeply in the idea that if there's not communication within the structure of the museum, no one's going to know what they're doing, and basically no one's going to take the responsibility. They need to be able to get the word out in a decoded way to the larger audience. Miguel Fernandez Felix, I am shocked to learn that he is the first keynote speaker in all these 20 years from Mexico, and here we are in the middle of LA. It's appropriate and it's time. It's important that you're here. And for me, Miguel is Mr. Mexico. And when I first came to Mexico and was working with him 25 years ago and thought I would write a book about Mexico, he said, Selma, hay muchos Mexicos. There's not just one Mexico. There are many, many, many Mexicos. And he kind of pushed me to concentrate on Oaxaca. And I wrote my book on Oaxaca, which was only one little tiny piece of all of Mexico. You are privileged to be able to have Miguel Fernandez Felix, the director of the Palacio de Bellas Artes, the most beautiful, beautiful museum in Mexico, to be able to help you, since you have not had the privilege of having speakers from Mexico before, help you understand a little bit about the landscape of the museums of Mexico and a lot about his ideas about what communication means, both within the museum itself and also outside of the museum, the challenges of the future, what needs to be done. And I just would like to welcome Miguel. Thank you for being here, and it's all yours.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Selma. I am so happy really to be here, and thank you, Selma, for your words, and thank you to Timothy, to John, Corinne, to be here. I am really, really happy to, may I have, oh, thank you, to be in the Getty for many reasons, no? Because I would like to show you very fast, because they told me that I have 2 hours. and it's really there are 4 issues that I want to show very fast. Now, first of all, the Mexican museums. I think that it's very important that you really know what is the landscape of Mexican museums, and also the challenges that I think that we have in Mexico about how it feels Mexico is running with our museums. The third is very shortly, in half an hour, Corinne, I would like to show a little bit about Palacio de Bellas Artes. It's one of the most important museums, not because I am working there, no, because really, really has a very important history. And to the end, I would like to show you a system of communication that I think is so important, because I am thinking about that the communication is I put to make bridges. I was running with exhibitions with LACMA, with Michael Goban about Picasso Rivera, and also with Philadelphia, a very important exhibition about Mexican art in the 20s, linked with America. And, but I think that this is the period really to put bridges, not walls. I'm not politician, but as you know, what is happening now in Mexico, United States, I think that the walls are not good really now to understand what is now the war and also in museums. But I think, it is my statement, that the bridges that I want to tell you at the end is inside the museums. Inside. What is really, really happening inside? I think that we have walls and we have bridges also. And let me tell you, well, this is the very fast landscape. No? I think that in, for example, in the 16th century, you see here a map that when the Aztecs, they collected and they have exhibit flora and fauna, they call Amoxcali, and when Moctezuma, also the king ruler of Aztec, has also his personal zoo. The name was Totolcali. But this is the beginning of our history. But we have to remember that in really at this moment in Tenochtitlan, many documents were destroyed. And there are persons like Carlos de Sigüenza y Góngora and Boturini. They began to put the first, for example, Mexican, the Indian Museum in Spain, but also to put the Mexican collection in the beginning of the ancient collection in New Spain. What is important because at the end of the 18th century, we had the first natural history cabinet in Mexico. But this is very important. This is a piece, this, you know, the Coatlicue, a great piece, an object very important in Mexico that has, you know, was discovered in 1790, exactly the same day of the conquest of Mexico, 13 August. That's incredible because was also this, another piece very important, you know, the calendar Aztec, was also at this moment the first time that they didn't want it really to destroy it. And that was the beginning of the archaeology in Mexico, and the beginning also to say that this piece, you are going to see after how importance put in the Mexican culture, and also you could see after this was the beginning of the first museum in Mexico, the National Museum that was made by the first president of Mexico. And this is not a joke. You are going to remember, because the first president of Mexico, you know the name, Guadalupe Victoria, and has my name, Miguel Fernandez Felix. I'm not joking. But you know, this is what happened in the 20th century. I'm going fast, no, because I would like that really you see. This is, for example, Teotihuacan was the first museum in archaeology in Mexico, and this museum is, at this period, Mexico has only 38 museums in the beginning of 20th century. But it's very important to tell you that now, for example, Mexico has more than 200,000 archaeological sites. That's incredible. And only open in Mexico less than 200. That's very, very interesting, no? Because, what happened in the 20s in Mexico? In the 20s, as you see, we have a history with the United States, no? Linked with Diego Rivera and these murals was also Orozco in the Dartmouth College in the United States, that we have a transition of this Mexico that also, you remember the Coatlicue in the 18th century, Diego Rivera put it, is here you could see, is here. That the meaning of the history in Mexico, of our culture, of our heritage, was really so important with the many Mexican artists put this link with our past. But that is very important to show you. In Mexico, we have two very important institutions, the National Institute of Anthropology and History, and the other is the National Institute of Fine Arts. Both really have the most important links in our heritage, in paleontological, archaeological, historical, and artistical. That's important because I'm going to tell you about the museums, what happened with this. In the 60s in Mexico, we have really a very, very important museum that were reborn, like the Anthropology Museum. Really was one of the best, I think, museums in the world for also the collection, the building, and also at this time, this is the new modern art museum in Mexico, and also if you travel to Mexico, this is in the Pozotlan, the Viceroyalty Museum, that is really incredible, has also these 3 centuries of our life in Mexico was New Spain. And also in the 80s, we could see museums like Museo Rufino Tamayo in contemporary art, and also a museum of the north of Mexico, Marco, or the new museum of the contemporary art in the University of Mexico, Amparo Museum, that is very nice museum, who has a very interesting pre-Hispanic collection. But I show you this because in the landscape of Mexico, of Mexican museums, for example, the Homes collection was one of the most important collections of contemporary art. And the last museum made by Toyo Ito in Puebla last year is the Baroque Museum. No? We don't have to forget that Mexico has also very linked with the Baroque. And this is a very short landscape. And what are for the statistics of Mexican museums? If you see, for example, this institution, INA, has the most important network of museums. Is 122 museums, and the INBA, the other, has 20. But the problem with the INBA is that the museums are linked with Mexico and 2 states. But we could see, for example, that both institutions has more or less the half of the visitors in our country. And well, this is very fast to see that in Mexico we have 1,262 museums. No? But the most important issue is that 60% of the Mexican museums are very linked with anthropology, history, and archaeology. Because that's the reason, because I told you very, very fast our past in Mexico, where we are continuing this really in this connection. 25 of the other museums are linked with fine arts, and when I tell you this, maybe I will tell you about what is the challenges that I see in the Mexican museums. First of all, I think there is the autonomy that we should have. The Mexican museums really should work in this field, because if we have really, when I say autonomy, that means I told you about these 2 great institutions like INBA and INA, but I think that the museums has to have more responsibility. We want when I tell you this, you'll say, well, this is like colloquium about communication. Let me show you after why I tell you this about this responsibility and how I see inside the museum what is the meaning in running the museum every day. Is, of course, the responsibility for us or from Mexico is to try to put a decentralization, to put less bureaucracy. That I think is how the museums could really be more in touch, not in vertical, more than in a horizontal way. We have to remember that the museums are very linked with the public. That's so important. But I think that the first link that we should have in the museums, if we really want to connect to the public, is we have to connect first of all, with ourselves inside the museum? That is a question, and that is the issue that I made, and this is, but before I put this system of communication that I want to show you, is what is the Palacio de Bellas Artes? No, Palacio de Bellas Artes is this extraordinary place, really. I hope that you could really go to this place because it's for this history that we have, and was the first museum of art, the first museum in Mexico also that had a popular art, was the first museum of visual arts, was the first museum of modern art. And now, what we are doing now is, well, also we have 70 murals from the great artists, the 7 artists that are here, like Rivera, like Orozco, Dan Siqueiros. And when I show you this, I want to tell you is how every day I work with my colleagues, how I run these challenges that I told you before, the challenges about the Mexican museums. I think we are thinking about inside, how this challenge, the autonomy, responsibility, decentralization, communication, I put in this system of information, of management, that the idea is very simple, is to have an autonomy more efficient, and all the departments has really an equal idea, a value. That for me is very important to know that if the museum wants really to put the public with to have the best experience with what is happening with the public. When I visited in my life the first museum, I say, I would like really to come back. The museums wants really, when you have a good experience, you want to come back. And I think this is an issue that we try to do with this manner, or working with every department of the museums, the administrative, the curatorial, the educative service, has to be involved in this idea with the public. How the departments could be really involved. I want to show you about the manner. Is very simple. Is we have to have communication inside, and let me. Yes, it's here, and how can I? Okay, well, we made a system that I'm going to tell you, for example, how this system works. That means, first of all, everyone in the museum could see this. Everyone. That doesn't matter which department. And that means we have here direct access, and this here is our intranet. Here is all the departments that we have, no, and also the links that who is in charge with every issue. But I will show you only 2 issues, no, because. This program, maybe I could put more, with more, no? Okay, don't worry, it's okay. Well, for example, these are 2 very important issues. The agreements that we have inside the museums, and the relation with the public, how we are working. I was tell you about the autonomy, about the issue that very, very important that I think in the museum is the decentralization. Here, for example, everyone in the museum could see which are my agreements. This is a system of communication. For example, where I can see in the indicators, for example, not only me, everyone could see this information. But it's not only information, it's, for example, the agreements about any issue that we have. No? For example, you could see here how all the areas that we have, and I put, for example, how many agreements I sent, for example, this year, is you could see, for example, is a request, an acknowledge, suggestion, a problematic, and if I see something is, we could see, for example, what happened with any area. If I send something, or anyone sends something to inside the museum, could really, for example, has to have an idea of solution to, about the problem, for example, that has in mind. And this is one step that show you, for example, to any of us, to have this transparency, because you could see, for example, in these problematics that we have, for example, we have red focus about this, but it's not only the red or the green, is really to see what's happening and what we are resolving together, and what is, for example, this is the red focus that we are resolving now. And if we could see, I could see, for example, which is the areas that we have really problems, that every area could see this. And the structure of this is that we had meetings, for example, in the museum, and in these meetings we could see, for example, that we didn't resolve, for example, and in these issues, every 10 days we have meetings about this access that we show what we are really working together. But the most important is that everyone could see what I'm thinking, but I also see what they are thinking. That is transparency. And I think that is so important to put this, that is exactly the same, because this system is also now connected with the management of communication. We have many applications, for example, that we are working on about collection, exhibitions, inventory, security. But if I see, for example, the opinions, that's very important for us. For example, I was telling in the beginning, is very important to connect inside, but also is all the opinions that came to us by writing opinions, like web, like social media, is by mail. Every opinion is linked with any area. That's very important. That's very important for us. The meaning is that we really, for example, that's the opinions that I have, like director, but we have in any area has also his own opinions that came from the public. And I showed you this because when I was telling you about these challenges, these aspirations that we have, these 4 aspirations, for us it was an inspiration really to put in a work that we are really doing and connecting. Because I think that the connection in the museum is very, it's not simple, is to have an experience. To really, when I speak, we in the Museum of Palacio de Bellas Artes, everyone has to be, it not has to be because it's a pleasure really, to talk with the public, to be with them, to really have a link. Because always in the bureaucracy we speak about that what we do for the public or the publics. But the issue is how really have this connection. And this is not the best idea. This is a simple idea in that I have been working, and is to, maybe I have 1 minute more, yes, or? Yes, and to finish because we, after the earthquake, we had, of course, a lot of not only problems. The Mexican society it really was very touched. You have to remember that in '85 we had another very strong earthquake. But the Palacio de Bellas Artes wanted also to put the memory in the present with a Mexican artist, Betsabe Romero, and all the persons that came to the museum outside write something. And we think that also the same, that the museum could be a place also for the present in this memory to the future. Let me show you this. It's only 1 minute. About the death, it's the day of that in Mexico in November. What they were thinking about, no? Their quake with the families. Palacio de Bellas Artes, of course. Well, 20 minutes, I finish. Thank you so much.
That was perfect. We have a little time. Can you tell me how much time we have to have a little conversation and a question and answer? Okay, great. The video moved me a great deal. You hadn't shown that to me in preparation. And I'm sorry. And I couldn't help but think about after 9/11 in New York, where people didn't know what to do with themselves. And a great many people landed up at the various museums, at the Metropolitan Museum. And I just wonder if there isn't something in the notion of a shared culture that we have and remembering it and somehow or another getting the comfort that if we can share the past, that we might be able to have a viable future together too. And our museums can be those places where the past and the future can come together and create a kind of a new kind of community. So I think that that's wonderful that you're doing that at Palacio de Bellas Artes, which after all has those incredible murals and so many remnants of the past. I want to ask Miguel one question or make a comment, and then after he responds, then maybe open it up so we can have a few questions. Miguel, you really do concentrate very hard on believing, it's sort of like know thyself. You have to know your own museum, and you have to know that you are all in this together in some way before you can really start the communicating outside, which this conference is about. One of the things you talk about is this idea of everybody in the museum having equal valor, equal valorization. That's not really how museums often work. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit more about, is there tension? Is it something that people say, well, I'm the curator, I should be the most important? Or, I mean, do you have to re-educate, or is it, how does that work?
That I think I have this. Well, it's a very good question, Selma, because I think that the areas or the departments that the old museum has is really, for me, has the same value because they are working in the same objective, mm-hmm. is to be in touch with the public, to have the idea to give the best experience and to show the heritage. And I think that it's not the curator that has the more importance that the departments of diffusion. Because, for example, in Mexico, we've had the discussion that, well, the research is for the curatorial issues. No, we have research in any issue in the museums inside, in diffusion, in educative service. And also because when you put in the same table everyone, is the best manner also to achieve the goal together. And that's the manner that we were working many years. And I think that Palacio de Bellas Artes and the other museum, I was director of National Museum of Art and Tepoztlán, and all my life I have been working in museums. And I think that for me, on the discussions with many colleagues, I say, well, every department has really the same relation. And also about this, the information I put in this system is that everyone see what is happening with the other. If you want to really be in touch with the public, it's better, first of all, to connect and to know what is doing the person who is maybe not in the same department in the other, and they could be more in touch. Let me tell you one example. For example, we have a department of publications in the museum. And the Department of Publication make catalogs. Of course, this is the final goal. But if you see, for example, that a Department of Publication in my museum knows that it's very important to have before the articles to give to another department like educative service. It's very important. It's very important to link they together. And now they're working in another manner. They're not only thinking about to make the best catalog. They know there are another goals before, so important that the goal to have a catalog. And this is, I can show you many experiences like this, many. And I think it's to connect. It's to connect and also and to have this responsibility, this autonomy. And I think that I am director only to put together the team, really, and they are really running something by themselves, no? This is...
And there's another thing that strikes me about what you do, and it's a little bit more subtle, because we've talked very often about the bureaucracy, which is also a part of the Mexican Museum challenge, right? The huge amount of bureaucracy and red tape. What you've done inside of your museum is, in a way, try to break that. Because within your museum, you have no bureaucracy. It's all transparency, and everyone knows what everyone is doing. And there's no one between the acuerdo, the agreement, and the actual doing of it. That's really quite revolutionary, I think.
Yes, well, we don't have bureaucracy. We have problems, but I prefer these problems, not without bureaucracy. Because really we have many issues to resolve also. And but the bureaucracy is connected with this very vertical issue. For example, you have to see, when I show you before, this National Institute of Fine Arts has a general coordination of museums. The National Institute of Anthropology has another coordination of museums. And we don't have, for example, a legal department in any museums. The legal department depends for these institutions. And I think that is the next step for the Mexican museums that belongs to the state, no? To really put in the same way to have this legal issue that they could really talk by themselves with another museums, not that the manner that is now. But it's not the only problem, no? I think I was telling in the beginning about these walls that we have. Really, we should think about that. If we think about in political issues that we have walls, I think that in the museums we continue to have inside, because we think that we are thinking about the public, but we have to realize that to think about the public is to connect, first of all, ourselves and to connect with the public. I don't know if how we are doing is the best connection, but I show you that the impact in the museum is the change, no is technological change that we are really working in my museum. It's psychological. Is really that they know that they have to talk with the public. They know what is happening every day. That is important, not to have this transparency and to have these connections, and also to resolve, for me, the most important with my team, I say to them, is it doesn't matter how many public go inside the museum. The most important is how many persons return to the museum.
Right.
No? Is if the museum really could have a dialogue with them. No?
And I love the idea that if there are so many borders within a museum and between and among all of the departments, you're never going to be able to break the borders between the museum and the public. So I think, and then it really becomes a metaphor for a better world. I think we have a few minutes, so it'd be nice to get a question or two from the audience. Does anyone have anything they'd like to ask Miguel?
Hi, thank you so much for that lovely presentation. My name is Daniela Rama. I'm with Art Processors. We do digital engagement for museums, which leads me to my question of, you've spoken about the way that technology has helped the museum internally in those sort of walls, but what are some ways that you're using technology inside the museum in a more visitor-facing way to help tell the stories of your institution?
What is...
Está diciendo que has hablado de la tecnología dentro del museo, pero ella quiere saber si estás utilizando la tecnología para conectar con el público afuera del museo.
Yes, of course. Yes. For example, the Palacio de Bellas Artes, let me tell you, was the first museum to put Spotify, no? For example, no? The first museum in the world. And we linked the music. Now we are using, of course, all time the technology. Now, of course, we are renovating the page. Now it's really very bad. I don't like it. But it's the technology we use in, for example, the next exhibition that we are going to have next days. About the cochinilla, this pigment, red pigment. We use it also a lot. I told Spotify, but also put, for example, it's not only the technology. We are working also in with other connections, with other institutions. For example, with we made with the Library of Mexico issues with the cinema. We put outside the exhibition, not only in the murals of the museums, and of course, use the technology. Now we have an art guide. Also, we use beacons, no, to put. Yes, we use a lot this.
Anyone else? Over there. Oh, okay. We've got a few questions. Okay. In the front row, there's some. Okay, sorry. A lot of questions.
Hello, thanks for this presentation. My name is Alexia. I have a question about, because we talked about borders, and I was wondering, since the Palacio de Bellas Artes really is at a border between the very touristic area of Paseo de la Reforma and more impoverished neighborhoods, I'm thinking about Colonia Guerrero, for instance, how do you take the museum outside of its walls so you can actually create, social change within those neighborhoods?
Yes, it's a very important question. I think that Palacio de Bellas Artes, for example, is working in a project with the community. We began also to make exhibitions to connect all this area. I can tell you, for example, we made an exhibition with Cartier-Bresson that came to Mexico. Has the first, let me tell you, he was living in La Merced, very close. And we made an exhibition also with all the photographic studios that are linked with this area. And also we are working with a project very important about muralism in the downtown. And now, for example, we are, it's very important to link all these area that, because many Mexicans cross the street after Reforma and they don't know to entrance to this place. No, it's not easy, and we are really involved with them. For example, with the scholars, we are putting a very important program with the Minister of Education to all the schools that are very close to the museum. It's the first museum in Mexico, let me tell you now, that they give up the money for the students come to the museum also, no? Because we want really to put this experience in these areas like La Colonia Guerrero and others that are very close to the museum. Yeah. I'm so happy to be here. Eh?
Hello, I'm Sandra Broren from Museum Boijmans van Beuningen in Rotterdam, in Holland.
Ah.
And I have a question about the culture of your organization. I think that if I want to try this in my organization, a lot of departments are threatened because you make some departments less important than others because everybody's equal.
Mm-hmm.
How did you change the culture in your organization that everybody was as thrilled as you are about what you were planning to do?
That's very easy because I'm director. No. It's very good question. I think I am fighting this. I am fighting. No, it's not. I'm not the answer to tell you. No, yes, we are living in a dream. No. It's every day. I fight this every day. No? And this is so important. No, it's not. Of course, inside my museum, I have problems. I have some people that thinks maybe different, but I think that the most important issue is when I put them together. I love it. I love it because it's really to have this, they know that it's not the importance of the power, it's the importance really to the connection to the public. No? And we are really, I invite you to see this experience that I've been working, but I think it's very important to put this question. And is to say that, yes, inside the museums we have walls, but we have also the antidote. Inside the museums, we know that we have the public, and we know that we have the society very directly. There are few institutions in the world that we are this issue that we have really to think about how the importance of the museums in the society. And well, this is, I don't, my answer is we have to fight, and we have to, and also not only to fight, we have to discuss, with the teams and to say what is really the best. Also was for them. Let me tell you, for example, when I was in the first museum that I directed in Tepoztlán, the people who were in the custodios, I don't know, the guards, when I told them, please see what's happening with the public, because I sent to you the opinions. In the beginning, they say, no, I know my work. And, they were connected in saying that they doesn't want it really to know what happened with the public. When they began to notice that the public was upset and angry for some issue, they began to realize this connection began to change their mind, and to really have to be better in the museum. Well, I tell you, it's very easy, no? If you put your team with the public. Let me finish, because I think I have 30 seconds. Let me finish. For example, in my museum, everyone should be have a moment with the public. Every department has to and we, I can show you? No, well, no, but I can show you, for example, that everyone has to be linked always in the museum, to be in contact with the public, to really smell the public, okay? Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
Corinne was kind enough to let me say a
Microphone. Selma.
couple more words, and what I want to do is go back to your question, Corinne, at the beginning, about whether museums should be activist, whether they should be in any way political. And I do believe that that video that you showed at the beginning was the answer. I mean, the fact that that video was shown in the museum was saying, let's forget about building borders and walls, let's be welcoming. And I think museums are one of the greatest welcome mats that we can imagine in our world. I'm so thrilled that we've had Miguel here, the first keynote speaker in 20 years from Mexico. I hope your curiosity has been piqued about the amazing museums that are down there. He's directed a few of them, but there are so many that we can learn so much from. So I hope that there'll be more contact with the Mexican museums. And I'm supposed to ask you, as the final word, if you could say, like in 2 or 3 words, what you want them to remember, this audience to remember about what you had to say to them today, what would those 2 or 3 words be?
To remember?
To remember?
Mm-hmm. I feel so touched to open my heart, really, and to see. I have to remember that it's very simple to be here and to say to give my history. I'm very in touch, really, to tell you what we are doing. It's only this, no? I don't have words. I don't have words. Remember is going to be in my future what happened this day. But I would like that you remember that this part that I showed you about Mexico, I would love that you could visit, no? And you could visit these amazing museums that I hope that touch your heart, no?
You see why I love him and his country.